regime. So we can see the rain out towards the west. Some of this rain will be quite heavy, potentially thundery in places. But all the time out towards the east, we hang on to the drier and brighter weather, especially for East Anglia and the southeast of England. And in the sunshine, it will feel very warm. We could see highs potentially up to 26 or 27 degrees. Up towards the north, however, it'll be quite windy. Could see some gales at times, especially across the coast. And really, as we end Sunday afternoon across Scotland, this can be a fairly wet picture. Again, some of this rain could be potentially heavy and thundery. Might not be too bad of an end to the day across Shetland and Orkney. A little bit cheerier for Northern Ireland after a fairly wet afternoon here. We will see some sunshine return, but still some showers around. And a very similar story for Wales and southwest England, a mixture of some sunny spells and showers. But out towards the east, we hang on to the relatively dry weather, although the sunshine here may be turning increasingly hazy. Overnight, most of the showers become confined to many western and northern parts. Quite a windy night to come, actually, for Shetland and Orkney. But for all of us, it'll be slightly cooler than the night just gone, but still, most towns and cities staying firmly in double figures. So looking ahead to Monday, it's really going to be a day of sunny spells and scattered showers. We do start the day actually with lots of sunshine, but the cloud will bubble up and the showers will quickly follow, mainly across the west initially, but then becoming a bit more widespread during the course of the day. Heaviest and most frequent showers out towards the west, and for all of us, temperatures a little bit down on today, but still highs down towards the southeast, reaching around 21 or 22 degrees.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. This brand new 2025 Benimar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up?
About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Good morning to you.
Virginia Woolf once wrote, "All the months are crude experiments, out of which the perfect September is made." On this first September Sunday, you're most welcome to 2 hours of arts, culture, current affairs and politics on Sunday with Michael Portillo. After just 14 months in office, Sir Keir Starmer has made massive changes to those occupying the great offices of state, and indeed throughout his government. Why has he done it? And can it help him to stave off Nigel Farage? My panel will opine. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, who held on to her position in the reshuffle, will present the budget on the 26th of November. The economics editor of The Spectator, Michael Simmons, will join me to speculate. Vladimir Putin has doubled down on his aggression against Ukraine following his meeting with President Xi of China and North Korea's Kim Jong-un. Defence and Foreign Affairs editor at The Telegraph, Con Coughlin, will join me. And did William Shakespeare have a secret gay lover? What's been described as one of the most important art discoveries of recent years might suggest so. Academic and researcher Professor Jonathan Bate will open history's closet. But first, your latest news headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Michael, thank you. Good morning. I'm Bethany Elsey with your top stories from the GB newsroom. The government is expected to unveil plans to move asylum seekers from hotels into military barracks amid rising numbers of migrants crossing the Channel. The newly appointed Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood is reportedly set to announce the policy within weeks. It follows a wave of protests outside asylum hotels over the summer, dozens of which are now set to be closed. It's reported ministers are also close to agreeing a one-in, one-out returns deal with Germany, having already sealed one with France. Defence Secretary John Healey says there's still more to do.
No one part of this will solve the problem. It requires action on the gangs, action on the boats, action on processing any claims, action on negotiating agreements to return those who have no right to be here to other countries. We started to do all that. Good progress in the first year, but so much more to do.
Came after more than 1,000 migrants crossed the English Channel yesterday, taking the number of illegal crossings so far this year to more than 30,000. The Metropolitan Police has condemned the abuse it claims its officers suffered while arresting more than 400 people at a Palestine Action protest. The force says its officers were kicked, punched, spat at and had objects thrown at them during the rally in Westminster. More than 1,500 protesters gathered in support of the group, which has been prescribed as a terrorist organisation. Piers Corbyn, the brother of former Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn, was among those detained. For the first time since the war began, Russia has hit one of Ukraine's government buildings in the capital, Kyiv. The overnight airstrikes have been described as Russia's largest attack since their invasion more than 3 years ago. A baby is among at least 3 people who've been killed after drones also hit residential areas. Around 18 people have been injured, including a pregnant woman who's been taken to hospital. An investigation into Wednesday's deadly funicular crash in Lisbon has found a cable linking the 2 carriages snapped. 16 people and died and about 20 were injured when one of the carriages derailed. Authorities say the driver applied both brakes, but they failed to work, sending the car hurtling down a steep road at 37 miles per hour into a building. The families of the British couple killed have paid tribute to them, saying they are heartbroken. The other British victim, a man in his 80s, has not been identified. Prince Harry is returning to the UK this week for the first time in 5 months. He's expected to show his support for BBC Children in Need and revisit a community recording studio in Nottingham. Despite no longer being a working royal, he's set to carry out a run of engagements, although it's not yet clear if he will meet with his brother and father. And in the northeast of England, 60,000 runners are preparing to start the Great North Run, one of the biggest half marathons in the world. Around 200,000 supporters are expected to line the route from Newcastle through Gateshead and South Tyneside before finishing in South Shields. The waves for the masses have just started and will continue until around midday, with many taking part to raise money for charities. Famous faces running include Commonwealth Games champion Ailish McColgan and the fitness coach Joe Wicks. Good luck to everyone running, including my mum, my auntie and my cousin. I'll have more for you at 11 o'clock.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet. or beyond.
Thank you, Bethany. Elsie. Upon losing his deputy, about which he must have mixed emotions, the Prime Minister decided on a massive restructuring of his government. Senior ministers who had shown scant sign of success, such as David Lammy and Yvette Cooper, were given sideways promotions. There's a new chief whip, a number 10 Treasury team, and Siberia for the former Welfare Secretary Liz Kendall. What can it all mean, and does it fend off Farage? My panel is here, acting deputy commentator at The Telegraph, Poppy Coburn, political commentator Matthew Stadlen, and journalist Candice Holdsworth. Welcome to you all. Matt, what's it all about?
It was a little unfair to suggest that David Lammy had scant success, because actually I think one of the successes so far of this Labour government has been the way that they've handled the Donald Trump White House. And
so why is he being moved from Foreign Secretary?
I think because it's important for Starmer to have a strong deputy Prime Minister, not deputy leader of the Labour Party, of course, and these two things have now been uncoupled to perhaps to avoid potential difficulties further down the line. But I think, look, I have no time for J.D. Vance, the Vice President, whatsoever, and I think previously nor would David Lammy, but the fact that he's been able to develop a relationship with him, as Starmer develops a relationship with Trump, someone also I have very little time with, I think has been a success. But I think this is about repositioning people so that they can drive through the reforms that Starmer thinks are necessary. So, for example, welfare, they'll have another go at that, I suspect, and trying to stop the small boats. Shabana Mahmood is a very significant, I think, appointment as Home Secretary. She's seen as very tough in that area. So maybe this has been an opportunity for Starmer to do something sooner than he might otherwise, and for it to be a genuine reset, unlike the shuffling around of sort of private staff that we saw at the beginning of the week before Angela Rayner's resignation.
You took issue with me over saying scant success for Lammy. You didn't take issue with me for saying scant success about Yvette Cooper. What is the justification for giving Yvette Cooper a major office of state when she's been so unproductive in her last office?
We say she's been so unproductive. I think we will start to see, I hope, positive changes, some of which will be higher responsibility.
Why is she not being left in position? I mean, why is the entire Home Office being cleared out? And here's a woman who I think has shadowed the position for a decade and a half. Why has she been moved on? How can we claim that she's been moved on because of her success rather than her failure?
It's possible to feel that Shabana Mahmood, who is thought to have done a good job in her previous role and in dealing with overcrowding in prisons, it's possible to think that she might be better suited to the Home Office role than Yvette Cooper, and still think that Yvette Cooper can be a successful operator. And also, you don't want to alienate very senior figures of your cabinet at this stage, because that causes more problems. So we hope that she will do a very good job as Foreign Secretary. But there is a wider question here, which is this the way to run a government generally? This is not new to Labour, but you have people in positions of responsibility and power and expertise for a year, and suddenly they're moved on.
I will answer your question. No, it isn't. And if you're saying that, you know, we're now going to get a better government out of this, then what that calls into question is the judgment of the Prime Minister 14 months ago.
Very difficult.
How did he get his government so wrong 14 months ago?
You say, I don't think it is as black and white as you're attempting to paint this, Michael. It's perfect. Also, he hadn't had experience of government, Keir Starmer. I think this has been a problem for Labour. They were out of power for 14 years, so it's difficult to predict exactly who is best suited to any particular role. I don't say this will definitely produce better government. I hope that it will produce better government.
Candice, what's your reaction to the reshuffle? And maybe think a bit about my question, will it fend off Farage?
Yeah, well, OK, there's two things there. One, I'm not sure if it will fend off Farage, because that depends on how much fragmentation continues on in British electoral politics. I mean, at one point it was thought, well, actually the vote is split on the right, so Labour's pretty safe. But now you're looking at this new Corbyn party, so that could threaten Labour as well. So we'll have to see what happens there. I can't say right now, because we're still quite far on from any sort of general election. I think that with these new appointments, fine, people say that temperamentally the people are better, but can they actually enact successful policies? And I think with Shabana Mahmood, unless she can do successful things like they did in the US and Australia with strong deterrence to stop illegal migration, she's going to fail as well. I don't think what they've got in place so far, these one-in, one-out deals, are strong enough deterrents. I don't think they're going to change anything meaningful. As for welfare reform, this is becoming a really big problem now. This is going to create an economic crisis later in the year. Liz Kendall had very strong things to say about welfare reform and wasn't able to do anything. I know Pat McFadden has as well, but will they be able to convince the Labour Party? I just think ideologically the right people aren't there to make meaningful change, the change we need.
Shabana Mahmood straight away is talking about moving the illegal migrants to different sorts of accommodation, probably onto MOD property. It seems to me this misses the point as far as the public is concerned. What the public wants is to stop the boats. And that, indeed, is what the government said it would do. It was going to smash the gangs.
Yes, and it hasn't worked. I mean, I've always said from the beginning, smashing the gangs is only looking at one side of the equation. It's looking at the supply side, so it's trying to get on top of the traffickers. But you have to look at the demand side as well. You have to work with incentives. I mean, it's what Marco Rubio has been talking about in the US, why they've had so much success at their southern border. They understand the incentives, and you have to remove all the pull factors that bring people to this country. And I just think with the one-in, one-out deals, they're not strong enough, because the thing is if you can't get into Britain, France or Germany are a pretty close second. And what was good about the Rwanda deal was no one wanted to go to Rwanda, so they wouldn't make the journey in the first place.
Poppy, it strikes me in general that people in this country are fed up, amongst other things, that people who fail tend to be promoted. And here's yet another example. Yvette Cooper has failed, so she gets a promotion. Doesn't that make people pretty sick?
I would rarely want to defend Yvette Cooper, but I think in this particular instance, it's not so much a personnel problem than a wider parliamentary problem. I mean, Yvette Cooper did fail in the Home Office. She did not achieve her stated aim, which is to shut down the hotels. There's only been a handful that have actually closed in the end, or anywhere near stopping the boats. We've actually seen record numbers of people coming over. But do I think Shabana Mahmood will succeed? I mean, as you pointed out, the reason Farage is now polling so well, particularly on the issue of immigration, which is now the #1 problem of salience for the British electorate, is because people do not want them to be housed here. It doesn't matter if they're in five-star hotels, and it doesn't matter if they're in horrible military barracks. The problem is that they're coming here in the first place. So if there is going to be a bright spot in this movement of people, Shabana Mahmood has been rewarded for genuinely good service as Justice Minister. And she does have one benefit over Yvette Cooper, which is that she's been pretty forthright about leaving the ECHR. And if Starmer does want to get some serious movement done on doing something to do with immigration, leaving the ECHR would be stealing a bit of a policy from Farage and then drawing a line in the sand and saying we're serious. But otherwise, with this reshuffle, and I suppose this comes back to what you said, Matthew, you know, if your whole idea is the Tories were a government of chaos. It was moving deck chairs on the Titanic. Nobody had any expertise. Nobody was across their brief. People who should have been left in the wilderness were being promoted because there was no one else left to actually take the job. It does not exactly fill me with confidence that already we are starting to move people from position to position.
Yes.
David Lammy, you know, to give him some credit, he worked extraordinarily hard to build up good relationships with the US. He really did. He brought in some very good personnel from the private sector to help him with doing this. I don't think it's a particularly good idea that he then be moved in about a year's time into a new position.
I've never worked in the Home Office, but as I understand it, it is the blob of blobs. It is the blob to which all blobs aspire to be. And I just wonder how clever it is to sweep out all the ministers.
Yeah.
I think it's not quite all the ministers, but most of the ministers, so that the incoming ministers have no experience of dealing with this dreadful blob. I wonder whether that's going to set them back by 6 months in itself.
Well, it's also the department that has some of the highest level of civil service churn. You know, people do not want to be in the Home Office because they know it does not work. But again, that can't really come, I think, from the Home Office Minister. It has to come from the Prime Minister himself. I think if you want to try and fix things like stopping the boats, you need to get a handle on law and order. That's another thing that Farage has gone really hard on. You need to start taking quite radical action, like breaking up the Home Office itself and moving out these briefs, which are clearly now far too broad to any one person, no matter how talented they are. And again, Shabana Mahmood is clearly a very talented politician. She cannot possibly be expected to fix all of these things.
Matt, do you agree with the tone of this discussion that what the British public wants is the boats to be stopped, which is, after all, what they were promised by Labour? and that everything else is just shuffling deck chairs. I mean, moving migrants from one sort of accommodation to another is neither here nor there as far as the public's concerned.
I think it's a really tricky problem, as we know, because Rishi Sunak told us effectively he was going to stop the boats. He was desperate to stop the boats. Starmer is desperate to stop the boats. But the Labour government wants to stop the boats without sacrificing British principles. And how far are you prepared to go in order to deal with that problem? It's a massive political problem. It's less of a problem, I think, in reality. But clearly they understand this. The hope will be in government that by putting people into military barracks rather than hotels, precisely part of the pull factor, which we've been discussing, will be removed because people won't want to go and stay in military barracks. The tone of the conversation worries me slightly. You described the Home Office, you've written the Home Office off as this dreadful blob. I think that does a great disservice to a lot of very hard-working civil servants. And I think tone actually does matter. And as far as whether or not it's right to have a reshuffle, this was going on in your time, as you know, when you were a Secretary of State. It's been going on since time immemorial. There are reasonable questions to be asked, as I say, about whether this is the best way to do government. But given this has been going on for decades, I think it's perfectly understandable, at least, that Starmer is trying to get different people into different posts. He's had a year now of seeing whether it works, and he hopes that it will now work better. If you think of Pat McFadden, for example, he's a sort of big beast, a heavy lifter, someone who might be able to knock heads together. And if he can drive through welfare reform, however across her brief Liz Kendall may have been, then I'm sure you would support that because you think that the welfare state does need to be reformed. I think there's a cross-party consensus on that, almost.
I'm going to leave it there. I was going to ask you one more question, but we're slightly out of time. But never despair, because the panel will return. For the moment, Candace Holdsworth, Matthew Stadler and Poppy Coburn, thank you very much indeed. And they'll be back at noon to debate the ethics of draining the North Sea of its oil and gas. Time for the Great British Giveaway now, and it's our biggest prize package to date, worth an incredible £104,000. Your chance to drive away with a brand new 4-berth motorhome and bank a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash. Here are all the details that you need for a chance to win this huge prize.
You're not going to want to miss our greatest Great British Giveaway so far. You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. With thanks to Marquis Leisure, this brand new 2025 Benamar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. And remember, if you can dream it, you can drive it away. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. The winner will be contacted live on GB News, week commencing 10th November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Coming up, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves, a member of the Cabinet who, despite her poor performance, was not promoted in the reshuffle, will present her budget on the 26th of November. The economics editor of The Spectator, Michael Simmons, brings his crystal ball into the studio. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
This is our country, and we think it's amazing. From high tea to the high street, we love it all. Even the rain, we like that too. There's nowhere else we'd rather be. That's why we're here to be the fearless champion of Britain, its voices and its values. Because we are GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Rachel Reeves has survived the cabinet reshuffle, so unlike many colleagues, she will carry the can for her department's performance on Budget Day, 26th of November. This week, a survey closely monitored by the Bank of England found that businesses have cut jobs at the fastest pace in almost 4 years. How much does she need to raise, and with what impact on economic growth? With me now is the economics editor at The Spectator, Michael Simmons. Welcome to the programme. What is the answer to that question? How much does she need to raise?
Well, big question, right? She's pushed back on this headline that's been in the news for a while, saying that she would have a £50 billion black hole to raise. I think she's probably right to push back on that, but I mean, she's still got a big hole to fill. It's probably going to be, if I was to guess, I would say it's in the 20 to 30 billion range. And you can sort of break that down, and we know certain things, for certain. So the U-turns on the winter fuel cuts, the U-turns on the plans to cut benefits is going to cost her about 10 to 15 billion pounds. So she's going to definitely have to find that money. We then think the changes to the borrowing costs, so we've been talking a lot this week about surging gilt yields. The effect of that in the OBR's, budget forecast is another 5 billion. So there's 20 billion guaranteed, and she'd left herself with this 9.9 billion sort of room to manoeuvre. So that's already more than wiped out. The big question about whether it gets bigger than that is how the OBR score Britain's productivity. If they downgrade, what they expect businesses to output over the next few years, then that's going to open up the hole even more.
When does the OBR next opine?
So they've just been given their notice for the budget. There's this rule that they have to have 10 weeks to produce a forecast, and she's given them 12 weeks. There'll be a crucial point towards the end of that 12 weeks where they look at the market conditions on that day and say that, this is what we're going to use for our forecast, and then that will be given to the Chancellor about a week before the budget, and then we will see it when she delivers the budget. And this is part of the reason we think why she's left the budget so late, is because it's so arbitrary. There is a day in that process where they say, this is the cost of things in the market right now. This is going to determine the size of the black hole. She's basically just buying time and hoping that market conditions improve, hoping that borrowing costs reduce, so she's got a bit more room to play with.
And the OBR, the Office for Budget Responsibility, is regarded as gospel, is it? She's not allowed to wiggle from that. She's not allowed to say, I don't agree with the OBR.
Absolutely. So it used to be, before the OBR was brought in under the coalition, the Treasury produced the forecasts and, essentially, whilst it was still independent within the Treasury, the Chancellor could, tweak things to make sure they had the room they needed. But the OBR will not be lent on, and because the Chancellor is committed to her fiscal rules, whatever they say goes. What she may do, though, is what's been recommended by the International Monetary Fund, which is she might get rid of the spring forecast. So by law, there has to be 2 forecasts of Britain's economy a year. And that means that we have twice a year where people like me are constantly talking about, oh, has she got any headroom? What's the size of this black hole? She might say, we're only going to do this at the autumn going forward, which means she would have a year before all this, hyperbole and chaos starts up again.
It's a very extraordinary thing in a democracy, though, that the Chancellor of the Exchequer has to accept a forecast. I mean, a forecast is just a forecast, but she has to accept it as gospel. A remarkable thing in a democracy, don't you think?
Yeah, well, I think there's a great case for it because it does reassure markets, because beforehand, when the Chancellor could effectively just pick their numbers, no one would have any confidence in that. So that's the value of it. But clearly, as Liz Truss has seen, and as Rachel Reeves is now seeing, if you want to do anything that goes against the economic consensus, then you just can't under this system, which, as you say, is not very well suited to democracy. There might be some middle ground we could find where, there's a set of forecasts, or the Treasury could produce a counter forecast and say, we disagree with the OBR's numbers and here's why, and then the voters and markets could decide. But I think going back to a system where the Chancellor just scores their own homework would not be a good thing.
I remember when I was Chief Secretary of the Treasury, a clever dick saying to me, all the Treasury forecasts are wrong by 50%, so why don't you just adjust them by 50%? To which I said, 50% up or 50% down, which was the end of the conversation.
Yeah.
But the point behind the conversation was right enough, which is that all forecasts are wrong.
Yeah.
We just don't know how wrong and in which direction they're going to be wrong. And it does seem very strange that we're bound by this. Anyway, let's say she's got to raise 25 billion. Is that reasonable?
Yeah, I think that's...
OK, 25 billion. How can she raise it?
Well, she claims that she's going to stick to the manifesto commitment of not touching the big three, so not doing anything on the rate of income tax or national insurance for employees or VAT. There's some easy wins she can do, and she can sort of justify getting around that. So, for example, the threshold by which you pay income tax or by which you go up a tax bracket has been frozen for years now. We call that fiscal drag, because as your salary improves, you get dragged up the tax bracket. If she was to extend that freeze for another 2 years, it banks her about £10 billion. There's then, little smaller taxes where she's not talked about, so capital gains tax, she can do some stuff there. She might try to tighten up things around inheritance tax. But the problem is, if she goes for these smaller taxes that are felt by, specific groups of people, that becomes a massive political problem, like we've seen with the tax on farmers, for example. And she's just going to get more and more of that. I think markets would prefer it if she did go for one of the big three. Now, as uncomfortable that would be for every voter, and as uncomfortable it would be for her and for Keir Starmer, because they would be breaking a manifesto commitment, it would perhaps reassure markets, give her some more time and hope that things turn around in time for the election, where she might have a bit of a war chest to do some spending.
There's a belief on the left of the Labour Party that there's a huge amount of money to be got out of rich people. On the other hand, I think the sort of Treasury conventional wisdom is that you can only get big money out of lots and lots of people.
Yeah.
Your fiscal drag example is a very good one. For heaven's sake, 10 billion by doing nothing, by just not adjusting the figures to inflation. Do you agree that the money can only be got out of the big numbers of people, or do you think there's anything in what the Labour left says that there's money to be got out of the rich?
I think the Labour left are completely bonkers on this. We have a small number of rich people that are responsible for an incredible amount of our tax take. The top 1% of income taxpayers are responsible for something like a third of tax. If even one of the richest taxpayers was to say, I don't want to pay these taxes, I'm going to move abroad, it takes over 1,000 average taxpayers to make that up. So I think the Treasury wisdom on this is right, that you do, if you want to broaden the tax take, you do have to do something across the board. And there's a sort of left-wing argument that could be made for this. We often talk about how the tax burden in the UK is the highest it's been since the Second World War. Now, that's true, but if you look at the income tax and national insurance that's paid by the average earner, it's actually the lowest it's been since the 70s. So she could make an argument that if the voters want a larger state, if Labour MPs want a larger state, then everyone has to pay a bit more. good luck to her, but I think that would make a bit more economic sense if you're of the view that the state should be big.
Michael Sims, absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much. Economics editor of The Spectator. Vladimir Putin voices aggression against Ukraine again this week, emboldened by his meeting with President Xi of China and North Korea's Kim Jong-un. Defence and Foreign Affairs editor at The Telegraph, Con Coughlin, will join me to assess the situation. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Looking ahead to the new week, and all of us, it's going to be an unsettled one. Further spells of rain and showers, and temperatures after quite a warm weekend for some of us will return to nearer average. So the reason is that we're going to be dominated by this area of low pressure, bringing in some further rain and showers. Before we get there, we've still got a fine evening to come across the southeast, but as we go through the course of the night, rain moves across many parts. Becomes increasingly confined to western and northern areas as we go through the course of the night, leaving clear skies across eastern areas, and quite a windy night actually for Shetland and Orkney. And for all of us, a fairly mild night for the time of year, towns and cities staying firmly in double figures. So we start Monday morning off on a fairly cheery note across many parts, lots of sunshine around, but we will see some showers quickly bubble up, especially across the West Country and Wales, parts of Lancashire and Cumbria too. The far west of Northern Ireland may also start to see a few showers come in, and again across western Scotland too, and still just got the overnight rain to clear across Shetland as we start the day. But elsewhere, lots of sunshine around as we start the new working week. But cloud will quickly bubble up, and that will allow some showers to develop initially across western areas, but they will become much more widespread as we go through the course of the day. Some of these will be heavy, potentially thundery in places. And for all of us, temperatures are a little bit down compared to the weekend, but we still see highs reaching around 21 or 22 degrees down towards the southeastern corner. Into the evening hours, the showers will become increasingly confined again across the west, leaving a fine end to the day across many eastern and central parts. And this showery picture will continue as we go through the course of the week. Many of us seeing showers or longer spells of rain. Temperatures around average for the time of year. So in any brightness, I think it won't feel too bad out there at all.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. At the National Memorial Arboretum in Staffordshire, more than 16,000 names are engraved into the walls of the Armed Forces Memorial. Each one recalls a person who's died in active service since the end of the Second World War. This year, 6 more names are being added in tribute of serving personnel who died in 2023 and 2024. In a GB News exclusive, our national reporter Jack Carson was given special access to learn more.
A permanent reminder of service and sacrifice, delicately engraved. At the National Memorial Arboretum, the Armed Forces Memorial remembers those who have been killed whilst on duty, died in operational theatre, or targeted by terrorists since the end of the Second World War. There are more than 16,000 names on the walls, and this week 6 more have been added for service personnel who died in 2023 and 2024. Philippa Rawlinson is the Managing Director of the National Memorial Arboretum.
Thankfully, there are only 6 names being dedicated this year. That's still 6 families who have lost their loved one, and it's a real honour to be able to remember their loved one, their name here, and be here for them year-round whenever they want to come and remember. The common thing we'll hear after a dedication of name service is thank you. Thank you for remembering my son, my husband, or my dad. Sometimes we have very young children who have lost their parents or their mother, but they also take comfort that they can come here year-round to take a moment to remember, to pay their respects.
2 bronze sculptures sit beside the centre walls, depicting the sacrifice that comes from conflict. The walls have been designed in such a way that at 11 o'clock on Armistice Day each year, a shaft of sunlight falls through this gap in the wall onto a bronze wreath at the centre of the memorial. Over 15,000 names were carved by computer when the memorial was first created, but since 2007 they've been engraved by hand. That job falls on stonemason Nick Hindle.
Family members, friends especially, who have been in the forces with these people, they'll come and see me carving the name on the wall, and it does put a lump in your throat when you chat to these people, and some of them have stood with them when they lost their lives. It's difficult to put those names on the wall, but for them to stand there and watch that name appear must be very difficult. But it's a fantastic thing to do, and certainly makes me very proud.
Warrant Officer Neil Tattersall was the first name to be engraved this year. He died in 2023 on an adventurous training expedition with the Royal Anglian Regiment. His wife Adette describes what it means to have her husband's name added to the memorial.
It's very emotional, if I'm honest. It's very emotional because I know how much it would mean to him. He did Afghanistan, Iraq. He was one of the last troops out of Hong Kong, which was amazing. Northern Ireland, Bosnia, Falkland. So he did every tour that he can imagine. And in fact, he loved it. And I'm so proud of what he did, what he believed in. Fighting for our country is, you can't get any sort of more proud than that, can you?
Every name tells a story. They were a family member, a colleague and a friend. These walls stand as a constant reminder we must never forget those who've given the ultimate sacrifice. Jack Carson, GB News, Staffordshire.
Vladimir Putin has rejected the implausible possibility of Western security in Ukraine, saying that Western troops stationed in the country would be considered legitimate targets. His comments came after the Russian leader met with President Xi of China and North Korea's Kim Jong-un in Beijing, where they watched a military parade. With me now is the Defence and Foreign Affairs editor at The Telegraph, Con Coughlin. Con, welcome to GB News again.
Good morning, Michael.
What is your assessment of where Vladimir Putin stands after that summit in Beijing?
Well, a good question. I think there were high hopes that that summit might achieve a breakthrough. The fact that Trump was having this first face-to-face meeting with Trump since returning to the White House. But since then, frankly, things have gone backwards. And if anything, and we've seen this overnight, Russia has now sort of intensified its missile and drone attacks against Ukraine. It's claiming to have captured more territory, and all the indications are that Putin seems intent on prosecuting this campaign. He believes the momentum is with him. I'm not sure that's true, but that seems to be his mindset. And nothing that Trump has said to him or done in tangible terms is persuading him to pursue peaceful options.
Yeah, that's the way it looks to me as well. So you rather doubt whether his optimism about the battlefield is justified. What's your analysis of the battlefield at the moment?
Well, I still think the battlefield is hotly contested. And I think the Ukrainians deserve enormous credit for seeing off this year's summer offensive by the Russians. The Russian economy has basically been put on a war footing, and most of its industry is now geared to producing weaponry for Ukraine. So there's a significant military effort being undertaken by the Russians. And the fact that the Ukrainians, who numerically at least are far smaller than their Russian adversaries, have held off this sustained attack is a great credit to them. And it begs the question, is the West, and particularly us Europeans, are we doing enough to give the Ukrainians the weaponry they need to prevail in this fight? Because the Russians are almost daily bombing the Ukrainian capital in this war. But whenever the Ukrainians try and attack Russia, then the West gets cold feet and says, oh, you shouldn't do that. That might escalate things. Well, it's a rather ludicrous position to be in, if you ask me, Michael.
Would you like to continue on that? The Americans have sustained their intelligence support. They allowed the Ukrainians to have some long-distance weapons, long-distance missiles, but they've now withdrawn the permission, I believe, for those to be used deep into Russia. And the non-American members of NATO were supposed to be paying for supplies. How many of those things are happening? What is the position with the foreign support?
Well, it's very patchy. I mean, from the outset of this conflict 3.5 years ago, I think we've all had this sense, those of us who follow this conflict closely, that the Ukrainians are fighting with one hand tied behind their backs because, as you referred to, all the restrictions that are placed on the weaponry they can use. We've given the Ukrainians the weapons to defend themselves, but not to win the war. And, you know, I've argued throughout this time that it's in the West's interest, it's in NATO's interests for the Ukrainians to prevail and for Putin not to win. Add to this the fact that too many European countries are still buying much of their energy requirements from Russia, thereby sustaining the Russian war economy that I referred to earlier. And the overall position, Michael, is a bit of a mess.
Con Coughlin, please come back and talk to me again soon. Keep us up to date with what's going on. Thank you. Now, let's go to the TUC conference, which begins today in Brighton. The General Secretary, Paul Nowak, is taking questions.
Despite those promises, how concerned are you about a retreat, watering down, diluting the measures, given the changes in personnel in the Cabinet, particularly your champion, Angela Rayner's gone, plus the architect, the author of the bill, Justin Madders?
Yeah, well, I'm never complacent, John, but I am confident that the government will deliver the bill and deliver it in full. Now, you mentioned it yourself. Earlier this week at our parliamentary reception, the Prime Minister looked me in the eye, looked Finola in the eye, and everybody at that reception, and talked about delivering the Employment Rights Bill, and talked about actually improvements in employment law, which he said will have an impact for generations to come, not just over the next 2, 3, 4 years. And right the way through, I mean, you know, ever since the Employment Rights Bill was tabled, ever since Labour published its Make Where proposals, you pick up a newspaper every week and there's a story about the bill's going to be watered down. I've seen no evidence that the bill is going to be watered down when it gets royal assent, and we'll certainly be campaigning hard to make sure it has the impact that it needs. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, because of the likes of Finola's story, that this will give rights to millions of people who currently are trapped in low-paid, insecure employment. But I'm also confident because this is popular with the British public. I mean, in every single parliamentary constituency, there is a comfortable majority of support for day one employment rights, for an end to exploitative 0 hours contracts, for giving people protections against unfair dismissal. So I think this is a key part of the government's economic policy. You know, economic growth that is felt in people's pockets, that's what you get from secure, well-paid employment. It's also electorally popular, and I think the government must and should deliver on the promise it made to the British people last July and deliver the Employment Rights Bill in full.
That was Paul Nowak at the TUC Congress, dealing with speculation that now that Angela Rayner has left the government, that there might be a watering down of the Employment Rights Bill. He's definitely of the view that there will be no such watering down. We shall see. Coming up, did William Shakespeare have a secret gay lover? What's been described as one of the most important art discoveries of recent years might suggest so. With academic and researcher Professor Jonathan Bate, the bard will be bared. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's quite a changeable picture across the Mediterranean over the next couple of days. Plenty of sunny spells on offer, but there is going to be some quite strong winds across parts of the Canaries as we head through Monday afternoon. Parts of Spain and Portugal, parts of Italy seeing plenty of sunny spells, but southern parts of France, parts of Greece and parts of Turkey seeing plenty of heavy showers through Monday afternoon. Quite a lot of sunshine on offer as we go through the rest of the week and feeling pleasantly warm with highs into the high 20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Beth.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, Britain's News Channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
Miriam, you can't be serious. Scrapping the triple lock on state pensions? Madness.
Andrew, we just can't carry on pretending. The numbers just don't add up. We've got to be honest with people. We've got to face the facts. That's what people want.
Well, that's what you get on GB News and on Britain's Newsroom. Lively debates, lively conversation.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first, and we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's political podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's political podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's News Channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Did William Shakespeare have a secret male lover? A previously unknown miniature portrait painted by Nicholas Hilliard depicts Henry Wriothesley, the 3rd Earl Southampton. Shakespeare dedicated both Venus and Adonis and the Rape of Lucrece to him, with one line of the latter reading, "The love I dedicate to your lordship is without end. What I have done is yours, and what I have to do is yours." However, the most striking feature of the miniature lies, apparently, on its reverse. With me now to tell me more is one of the academics behind the research, Professor Jonathan Bate. Hello, Jonathan.
Hello there, Michael. Hi.
Welcome to GB News. OK, ... we're hanging by a thread. What's on the reverse?
Well, this is really interesting. The first thing to say, it was the wonderful art historians Elizabeth Goldring and Emma Rutherford who made this discovery. A tiny little miniature portrait. And when they opened it up and looked at the back, they found there was a heart on it, which was partly because miniature paintings were done on playing cards at that time. But over the top of the heart, someone has blotted it out with what looks like a spade or maybe a spear. And they came to ask me about the Shakespeare connection, because as you said, Michael, the Earl of Southampton was Shakespeare's first patron. And I thought, well, hang on, Shakespeare's coat of arms had that spear on it. Could this be that this was a love token given to Shakespeare by the Earl of Southampton? And then when a bit later Southampton got married, Shakespeare painted it over and gave it back. Of course, we don't know that for sure, but we certainly do know that Southampton was Shakespeare's patron, that he had a reputation for this extraordinary androgynous beauty. You can see in the portrait the long hair, the earring, and that some of Shakespeare's sonnets do talk about his love for the young man the sonnet's addressed to. A woman's face with nature's own hands painted begins one of the sonnets, sonnet number 20, "Hast thou the master mistress of my passion?"
The dedication, which I quoted earlier, does indeed seem over the top. Just wondering, was the fashion for over the top dedications, are we reading more into that than one should?
I think that's a shrewd observation, a possibility. But it is striking that the first poem that Shakespeare dedicated to the Earl of Southampton, Venus and Adonis, which actually happens to be a poem about a beautiful young man, the dedication is very formal, very distant, very similar to many other dedications of the time. The second one, with this very intimate language, does strongly suggest that Southampton accepted the first dedication and that they'd got to know each other. I think at the very least we can say with some degree of certainty that Shakespeare and Southampton knew each other, that there was a kind of intimacy there. We will never know, of course, how far that intimacy went.
What was the role of miniatures? What did the bestowing of a miniature on somebody mean?
Yeah, no, miniatures were very much love tokens at the time. It would be a little bit like, sharing a selfie or even an intimate picture over social media today. And the striking thing about this one is the researchers who found it, Elizabeth Goldring, Emma Rutherford, that they wouldn't tell me exactly where it was, that the owner wanted to keep some privacy, but they did say it is in the household that is in descent from the Earl of Southampton. Now, unless he commissioned it for himself, which would seem most unlikely, that does suggest it was given to someone and given back.
And your speculation is that it had to go back when he got married because, all that youthful misadventure had to be put behind you.
That's absolutely right. And we know Southampton had exactly this reputation in the early 1590s, that Lord Burghley, Queen Elizabeth's chief minister, wanted him to marry his granddaughter, Elizabeth Vernon, and he refused. Eventually, by the end of the 1590s, he did. But there's no doubt that there was quite a reputation around Southampton and around certain goings-on at court that the more Puritan faction didn't like. We did have a little bit of a 1590s culture war over these questions.
Just a word about age difference. Can you calculate how old were these two men?
Indeed. Southampton turned 18 in 1594, exactly around the time Shakespeare and other poets were seeking his patronage. And that was partly because, I beg your pardon, so he turned 21. That was the age of majority, which meant that he'd have come into money, and you could see why poets wanted him then. Shakespeare, by this time, is 30. He's established himself as a dramatist, but then the theatres are closed because of plague, a bit like COVID, and so he starts writing poems and seeking a handsome young patron.
Jonathan Bate, thank you very much indeed. A possible scandal there. Well, that concludes the first hour of Sunday with Michael Portillo. Please rejoin me at noon. My panel is going to be discussing whether it is nobler to drill or not to drill North Sea oil. Stefan Kyriazis will make a dramatic entrance to report on his trips to Theatreland. Renowned celebrity photographer Steve Shaw will talk about his new book. And in the latest instalment of our Taste of Britain series, Sam Brennan who's the head chef of the Braywood in Maidenhead, will take the lid off what's cooking in the hospitality sector. Please join me then. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Looking ahead to the new week, and all of us, it's going to be an unsettled one. Further spells of rain and showers, and temperatures after quite a warm weekend for some of us will return to nearer average. So the reason is that we're going to be dominated by this area of low pressure, bringing in some further rain and showers. Before we get there, we've still got a fine evening to come across the southeast, but as we go through the course of the night, rain moves across many parts. Becomes increasingly confined to western and northern areas as we go through the course of the night, leaving clear skies across eastern areas, and quite a windy night actually for Shetland and Orkney. And for all of us, a fairly mild night for the time of year, towns and cities staying firmly in double figures. So we start Monday morning off on a fairly cheery note across many parts, lots of sunshine around, but we will see some showers quickly bubble up, especially across the West Country and Wales, parts of Lancashire and Cumbria too. The far western Northern Ireland may also start to see a few showers come in, and again across western Scotland too. And still just got the overnight rain to clear across Shetland as we start the day. But elsewhere, lots of sunshine around as we start the new working week. But cloud will quickly bubble up, and that will allow some showers to develop initially across western areas, but they will become much more widespread as we go through the course of the day. Some of these will be heavy, potentially thundery in places. And for all of us, temperatures are a little bit down compared to the weekend, but we still see highs reaching around 21 or 22 degrees down towards the southeastern corner. Into the evening hours, the showers will become increasingly confined again across the west, leaving a fine end to the day across many eastern and central parts. And this showery picture will continue as we go through the course of the week. Many of us seeing showers or longer spells of rain. Temperatures around average for the time of year. So in any brightness, I think it won't feel too bad out there at all.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
This is your chance to win a motorhome and cash in our biggest giveaway to date. Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be the proud owner of this 2025 Benamar Primero. It comfortably accommodates 4 people and can be driven on your standard driving licence. Plus, you'll also bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Make sure you don't miss out. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact is Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up? About 10.
So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
I mean, the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
May I be amongst the first to wish you a good afternoon. The artist William Morris described how parched up beech trees will be yellowing soon and how yellow flowers grown deeper with the sun fall their petals one by one on a September afternoon. You're most welcome as we turn the leaf on politics, theatre, art and photography here on Sunday with Michael Portillo. Today's ethical conundrum concerns North Sea oil and gas. To drill, baby, drill, or not to drill, baby, drill? That is the question for my panel.
Deaf Republic is kind of a theatrical adaptation from the poetry of Ilya Kaminsky.
Efren Kyriazis will report on his adventures in the land of make-believe, specifically theatre, sharing reviews of productions including Born with Teeth and Death Republic. Renowned celebrity photographer, founder of the cult Hollywood magazine Treats, Steve Shaw will be here to talk about his new book, Iconic Celebrity Shoots and Hollywood Parties. And in the latest instalment of our Taste of Britain series, Sam Brennan, the head chef of the Braywood in Maidenhead, will tell me what's cooking on the banks of the River Thames. But first, your latest news headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Michael, thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Bethany Elsey with your top stories from the GB newsroom. The government is expected to unveil plans to move asylum seekers from hotels into military barracks. The newly appointed Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, is reportedly set to announce the policy within weeks. It follows a wave of protests outside asylum hotels over the summer, dozens of which are now set to be closed. It's reported ministers are also close to agreeing a one-in, one-out returns deal with Germany, having already sealed one with France. The announcement came after more than 1,000 migrants crossed the English Channel yesterday, taking the number of illegal crossings so far this year to more than 30,000.
No one part of this will solve the problem. It requires action on the gangs, action on the boats, action on processing any claims, action on negotiating agreements to return those who have no right to be here to other countries. We started to do all that. Good progress in the first year, but so much more to do.
That was the Defence Secretary John Healey speaking earlier. The Met Police has condemned the abuse it claims its officers suffered while arresting more than 400 people at a Palestine Action protest. The force says its officers were punched, kicked, spat at and had objects thrown at them during the rally in Westminster. More than 1,500 protesters gathered in support of the group, which has been prescribed as a terrorist organisation. Piers Corbyn, the brother of former Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn, was among those detained. For the first time since the war began, Russia has hit one of Ukraine's government buildings in the capital, Kyiv. The overnight airstrikes have been described as Russia's largest attack since their invasion more than 3 years ago. A baby is among at least 3 people who've been killed after drones also hit residential areas. Around 18 people have been injured, including a pregnant woman who's been taken to hospital. An investigation into Wednesday's deadly funicular crash in Lisbon has found a cable linking the 2 carriages snapped. 16 people died and about 20 were injured when one of the carriages derailed. Authorities say the driver applied both brakes, but they failed to work, sending the car hurtling down a steep road at 37 miles per hour into a building. The families of the British couple who were killed in the accident have paid tribute to them, saying they're heartbroken. The other British victim, a man in his 80s, has not yet been identified. Prince Harry is returning to the UK this week for the first time in 5 months. He's expected to show his support for BBC Children in Need and revisit a community recording studio in Nottingham. Despite no longer being a working royal, he's set to carry out a run of engagements, although it's not yet clear if he will meet with his brother or his father. And a teenager who died of leukemia in 2006 has become the first Catholic saint of the millennial generation. Carlo Acutis was born in London and nicknamed God's influencer after he created a number of websites documenting so-called miracles as a means of spreading his Catholic faith. Pope Leo led a ceremony in the Vatican in front of more than 70,000 young worshippers. Many more have visited the Italian hilltop town of Assisi, where Carlo's body lies preserved in wax. Those are the latest headlines. I'll have more for you in half an hour.
For all the latest from GB News whilst you're on the go, get the GB News app. Scan the QR code now to download or visit gbnews.com/app.
Thank you, Bethany Elsey. The Conservative Party leader has committed a future Conservative government of her party to exploit to the full the hydrocarbons of the North Sea. This from the party that legislated net zero. Is it an ethical commitment? Should we not be setting an example to the world by foregoing economic advantage as we move to green energy? Or do we have an obligation to produce our own oil and gas in preference to relying on Russia? My panel has returned to debate the ethics of drilling and pumping. Acting Deputy Comment Editor at The Telegraph, Poppy Coburn, political commentator Matthew Stadlen, and journalist Candice Holsworth. Well, Poppy, what do you think?
Where
are the ethics?
Where to start? But I suppose, firstly, the conceit that the rest of the world cares what Britain is doing in its energy policy is quite quaint. I don't really think we're making as big an impact as we think we are in terms of we're not going to influence India or China in their own gas guzzling capabilities. But also, I will just say, of course, there has to be some debate about green energy. The climate change is obviously real, it's obviously happening, and we need to have a long-term policy of what we're going to do about that. I think net zero was a mistake. I think it was a mistake that the Conservative Party did it in the way they did, because they didn't actually game through the eventualities of what would happen when we move to renewables without actually having the capacity to build them at a scale where they are both cheap and reliable. So a lot of renewables at the moment are intermittent. The other problem is there is a very good renewable source of energy, which doesn't have the downsides of wind or solar, and that's nuclear energy. But unfortunately, because it is so tied up in excessive regulations, even though Ed Miliband has gone forward with the construction of more nuclear energy plants and has been flirting with the South Korean small modular nuclear reactor model, this is going to take a very long time and cost amounts of money that are frankly quite frightening. So what do you do in the short term? Now, I don't think Kemi Badenoch is entirely wrong to say we are probably still going to rely on oil and gas. Whether or not we're drilling that ourselves or importing it, that is the real question here. It's not that we are able to rely entirely on renewables. So, do we want to be on the hook diplomatically of importing oil and gas from countries that don't agree with us in our British values, whether or not they be Qatar? We don't want to be vulnerable to things like that happened to Germany with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, where all of a sudden it was in a very difficult situation. Energy prices spiralled because it couldn't no longer get the oil that it was importing from Russia. And now this is becoming a big political problem, right? We have some of the highest industrial energy costs in Europe, and that doesn't even get into consumer energy costs. No one feels that they're getting good bang for their buck at their winter time, which is why the government's spending so much money on subsidies. So
back to the ethical question. I think I heard you say, in the course of what you were commenting there, I think I heard you say that we need oil and gas anyway. Is that right? In
a transition period, yes.
Over a period of time,
yes.
In the medium term, let's say.
Yes, we do.
So what would be the moral argument for not producing it ourselves if we need it? Yes, that's right, if we need it. It is established that we need oil and gas. What's the moral case for not producing it ourselves?
If we're not producing ourselves, we're importing it.
Yes.
And we don't get...
What's the moral case for importing?
Well, I don't think there is a moral case for importing it. I think it's more expensive, and it leaves us at the mercy diplomatically of countries that we should not have diplomatic relationship with, or at least not close relationship with.
Let's put that to Matt. Poppy thinks there's no moral case for not producing our own oil and gas, given that we all agree, or I think most people agree, that we need oil and gas in the medium term.
I worry about the use of the word morality when we're talking about politics and policy of this sort, OK? Of course, morality does play a broader role in politics. But the key thing here is that we want to try to limit the effects or slow down the impact of climate change. And how do we best do that? Are we doing that?
Half a sentence on that. The reason that I think this can be a moral debate is that I think that's the way that Ed Miliband sees it. In other words, he believes that even if it doesn't stack up economically, the fact that we're making an example to the world is important. I would say that, therefore, has a moral quality to it.
I wouldn't choose the words moral, but I do think that being an example to the world, showing some sort of leadership, which then makes it easier for us to have a degree of influence. I'm not naive, Poppy, and I understand that our stance may have limited impact, but to the extent that we as a country, and we're constantly being told that we are still a great country by the likes of Nigel Farage, I suspect, to the degree that we can have an impact, then an example matters. The problem is, and I'm not an energy expert, that we, of course, need a degree of gas and oil in a transitionary period. And if by importing it, we're actually doing more damage to the planet, then that would only make sense if you say that's less important than the question of whether we are being an example
Where
to
do you
the world.
come down on that?
I suspect that there is a reasonable argument to be made that we should not be importing where we can produce ourselves, but it's not going to make energy prices cheaper for us. We all want cheaper energy prices. It's not going to make... It's really important for people to understand. The price of gas will be determined on the international market, as you know. So even if we do start drilling heavily in the North Sea, which is a limited resource, of course, anyway...
But what about the jobs?
That's a different point. Of course, it could bring... It's a very important point. Of course, it could be good for jobs, but it's not going to have an impact, as I understand it, on the price of energy.
Candice, let's think another aspect. What is the morality of the following? That we reduce our own carbon emissions by not producing our own oil and gas, but that oil and gas is produced somewhere else. We reduce our carbon emissions by not producing our own steel, but that steel is produced somewhere else. So what is the morality of reducing our own ledger so that we look good in terms of meeting carbon targets, but the global effect has been net zero? It's made no difference at all to the amount of carbon that's being consumed. Discuss the morality.
Oh, gosh, you're asking me about morality. I'm always the most pragmatic person on the panel. I'm like, no, you do what needs to be done. I think when it comes to energy policy, I think you do need to be pragmatic. I think each country will serve its own national interest. I mean, you look at South Africa, where I lived for a number of years. They tried to rapidly transition to green energy and ended up with an energy crisis, rolling blackouts. So they've now parked that, and they're burning more coal, and it's all stopped. And it's so much better, and it's exactly the same stuff that we have here. The unions say that you're getting rid of good, well-paid jobs, energy is very expensive, the economy suffers. So I think that's what you have to consider. I think those are the real moral considerations. Your own people and how much they will suffer when energy prices are high, when rolling blackouts start, and when all the good, well-paid jobs go.
But it's not going to have an impact, is it?
No, that's not true.
Drilling in the
People
North Sea is not going to cheapen our energy.
I disagree with that. I disagree with that. Lots of people say that, but when America started fracking, the price did come down. Supply and demand.
Yeah.
Poppy.
There's another element to this debate that we haven't yet touched on, and that is we are moving towards an era, if this AI revolution is real and it's not just smoke and mirrors, where one of the most important things a country can do and have is energy abundance. So it's not just a case of prices, it's a case of supply. And as we are moving towards electrifying the grid and the demand for electricity is growing, particularly with the government strategy of data centres, that's been a big part of their growth strategy, we need to have abundant energy. And that's something that you cannot necessarily get in the medium term, even though I do think, again, fracking would ease those pressures somewhat. But this is, again, comes from... It's not just a case of limiting, it's not just a case of, how do you feel your pocket at the end of the month? It's a longer-term strategic aim of the government. We need as much energy as possible, it must be cheap and it must be reliable.
We've just had a reshuffle. Ed Miliband was not moved. So despite the fact that the panel here from various political shades seems to think, really, there's a pretty good case for drilling and pumping our own oil and gas, I think Matt's even included in that, is it not strange that we go on with Ed Miliband, who's so against that idea?
I think it was one of the most worrying parts of the reshuffle that he remained in his position, which is, again, enormously influential and only will become more so in the coming years. I think this is, unfortunately, another case, though, of immediate, pragmatic political concerns overriding the good health of the country.
Matt, do you think the Labour government's shutting down of the North Sea will persist all the way through the 5 years of the government?
Well, we know that Keir Starmer isn't entirely averse to a U-turn or an about turn, so I wouldn't be absolutely sure. But I do agree that with Ed Miliband in position, that becomes, I think, much less likely. Look, let's step back just very briefly for a moment. Climate change is real. It is partly made by us. The effects of climate change are already very bad for a lot of people around the world. They could become bad for us. They could create even bigger challenges when it comes to migration and the possibility of migration crises. We obviously have to take this seriously. It's obviously correct that the government is taking this seriously and is forward-looking in terms of the big picture. I've always been concerned about the problem with net zero is, has it put the cart before the horse? The devil is in the detail, and it is absolutely essential that this government, as well as keeping this big picture in mind and showing leadership around the world, does what it reasonably can to lower energy prices in this country, because without that, it makes it far harder for growth and it makes it much more painful for households.
Candice, will the shutdown of the North Sea survive the next 4 years of the Labour government?
I think it could be one of the big issues that drives people away from Labour, and I think that the Conservatives and Reform would be wise to go for what I believe to be common-sense energy policy and oppose that.
Well, those two parties are pretty clear on the policy. What I'm saying to you is, will it cause the Labour government to change its policy, do you think?
I think with Ed Miliband, no. And I can't see it happening with Keir Starmer, because he has said he's a red-green. I mean, for him, it's a deeply held philosophical view that we need to transition away from carbon and to green energy. So I think that they would have to fundamentally change the way they see the world.
It's
and
not
I don't think they're going to do that.
It's not philosophical.
It is,
the science is
it
emphatic.
is.
The world is getting warmer, and it's partly because of us. We have to address it.
Dear panel, we have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Candice Holdsworth, Matthew Stadlen and Poppy Coburn. Coming up...
Deaf Republic is kind of a theatrical adaptation from the poetry of Ilya Kaminsky.
Stefan Kyriazis has been pacing the West End. He'll share reviews of productions including Born with Teeth and Deaf Republic. That's next.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
She's got it all wrapped up, hasn't she?
Yeah, £2,000 worth of gifts all set to go under the tree. I admire people who go out to the Christmas Eve and buy all their presents.
Oh, so it's hellish. It's hellish.
Have you done that?
I have done it once or twice, yeah.
Oh, dear.
So you have to buy for so many people, the dog, the cat, your partner. I mean, honestly.
It's never ending.
Never ending.
I've tried stockpiling before, and then when it comes to Christmas Eve, I'd get everything out thinking I've got loads and loads and loads. And I feel like I haven't got enough, and then I end up panic buying.
I like the whole festive period. It's my birthday 2 weeks before Christmas, so I like doing the shopping when the trees are up and the lights are out, and it's like, you know, proper Christmas vibe to it. It just feels wrong doing it so far in advance.
So you're Sagittarius?
Yeah.
What date are you? I'm the 16th.
I'm just before you. I'm the 11th.
Oh.
That's my granny's birthday.
I know.
Nice date. Yeah. Do you like to shop physically in person in the shops? Would you do it online?
Normally, all year round, I absolutely loathe shopping, absolutely loathe it with a passion. But I do like Christmas shopping. I like buying stuff for other people.
Oh, that's nice.
Do you? And toys for your husband.
And toys for my husband. Yeah, we were talking about Christmas toys as well, weren't we, earlier on?
Yeah.
And the thing I was saying to Biggins is about sort of like buying toys for grown men.
Yes.
But my husband is at that age now where he's reliving his past, and I want to buy him the little toys he couldn't afford when he was a kid.
So what sort of toys are we talking?
Little cars he couldn't... Not that, no. Not going back to that conversation.
What, like some electric?
The little cars he couldn't afford when he was a little boy. There were little Tonka toys, and he couldn't afford them when he was a kid. He had second.
Is it Hot Wheels?
Yeah.
Hot Wheels.
Hot Wheels.
Hot
rods.
Hot rods.
Hot Wheels.
Carry on up GB News Breakfast this morning.
Yeah.
Hot rods are the big racing cars, aren't they?
Yeah, very big.
Hot Wheels.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Stefan Kyriazis has been let loose once again this week. He joins me now to confess his theatrical experiences. Hello, Stefan. Lovely to see you.
Thank you very much.
What have been your theatrical experiences?
Well, apparently I've been on a rampage, and it's very Shakespearean, and we've actually got a film that ties in, just to mix it up a little bit. But first, we've got Born with Teeth. So this is the start of autumn. This is when all the big names are coming in. We've got even Susan Sarandon coming from America. Lots of big name actors coming in. This is Ncuti Gatwa, who was Doctor Who and in Sex Education, and Edward Blumel, who's been on loads of TV. I particularly love him as well. They are playing Shakespeare and Marlowe, and there's a lot of flirting and fighting and none of the other. But we've got a little clip just to give you a sense of the energy of it all.
This programme today seems to be dedicated to playing with the reputation of William Shakespeare.
It is very much. And it's very much looking at him a bit younger, a bit before he becomes the big, great figure. And also, I spend so much time watching Shakespeare plays. It's a little bit of a relief to see it from the other side. So this takes him, it's 1591 to 1593. We time jump. He's writing history plays Henry VI, parts 1, 2 and 3. Lots of scholars think that Marlowe was involved as well. So this is them. It's always in the same place. It's a bit of a sort of rundown pub room with a big table. They're there to write the plays. Shakespeare starts off kind of naive and shy, a bit overawed by Marlowe. And this is, Ncuti Gatwa here, look, he's bench pressing a table with his top off. He struts and swaggers, pouts, preens, and he leaps off the table at one stage. He's electrifying. He really, really is. It's this huge presence. And Marlowe really did have a reputation. He was a rake. He was a great figure, regarded at the time as the greatest talent. And, we still remember him. And then as the time jumps past, Shakespeare becomes a little bit more worldly, stands up a bit more, kind of. So the problem for me, I loved it. The interactions between the two are thrilling. It's really fun to watch, really dynamically staged.
Is it purely a two-hander?
It's a two-hander, no interval. I just think they slightly over-egged the whole Marlowe wants to devour every worldly pleasure, find heaven in the flesh, and he brandishes a giant quill, and Shakespeare's just got a little white stubby quill. But Shakespeare is very much, he wants to seek the mysteries of heaven and earth, and he loves things that can't be understood. Marlowe wants to conquer and devour everything. That's all fine up to a point. But Shakespeare's also a bit blushing and a bit shocked by all the tales of spying and plots and sex. And he clearly wants what Marlowe is offering him, but keeps sort of very maiden-like denying it. And I just feel he wants to work all the time. And Shakespeare was a grafter, absolutely.
Are you being over-analytical? What was it like as entertainment?
It's thrillingly entertaining. The problem is, at the very end, it really reaches for emotion. So it's this roller coaster ride, thrilling, very circular. Marlowe wants to recruit him as a spy. He wants to try and seduce him. He wants to fight with him, and it goes round and round, and it's very much the same over and over. And then the end really wants us to suddenly feel emotion for them both. And I didn't quite, but I had a brilliant time. They're both wonderful. That one's on at Wyndham's until November the 1st, and it's exciting theatre, which is what we need. And it's theatre for all generations, and yes, a fresh way to look at the topic.
I didn't introduce Rafa earlier. How is Rafa?
Well, this is one of the world's foremost Shakespearean experts. Doesn't have a lot to say today. He's trusting me, just about. Hello. But he's also very excited that we've got a film trailer coming up. We're breaking out of theatre. So we're going into Hamnet which is...
Hamlet has been a novel and it's been a play and now it's going to be a film, is it?
And it's kind of been a film before with Kenneth Branagh as a much older Shakespeare looking back on the loss of his son towards the end of his life. Now we're going completely the other way. Shakespeare as a young lad falling in love with, here, Agnes, not Anne Hathaway, but that's what her father called her. We've got a trailer for this. It looks sensational.
Obviously a huge cast. Have you not seen it? You've just seen...
No. So this, I wanted to flag this just because it ties in so well thematically. It's creating a lot of buzz at the moment at the film festivals. Two great actors, Mescal and, oh gosh, I've forgotten her name. It'll come back to me. Jessie Buckley, that's it. But it's Chloe Zhao, director. She did Nomadland that won the Oscar, then she did The Eternals, which wasn't really so good. But she's back safely in her kind of indie domain. And this is Maggie O'Farrell's book from 2020.
Yes.
The book was a huge success. It's beautiful, it's powerful. It weaves in a little bit of folklore, so it implies that Agnes has powers of kind of tree and root, that she's very rooted in the countryside, and the magic that's dying out from there. It actually brings death to the stage as a sort of embodiment when this time it's Hamlet's twin sister Judith that gets the plague, not him. And he actually can see death, and he bargains, and he trades his life. And then the film and the book very much are then dealing with grief and loss. But the interesting thing with all of this is that it's looking at how, presumably, it influenced Hamlet, the play. Now, there was a play that the RSC did that was on stage 2023 that I absolutely hated and thought was static and staid and had no life to it. I think we can see from here it's very, very thrilling. But it's just Shakespeare the man. We don't get to see a lot, and we don't know a lot. So these are always Born with Teeth, and this fictional looks at the man from what information we do have. But this, to me, looks absolutely stunning. I love the book. I'm very excited about this.
Finally, you're going to take us away from Shakespeare, I think.
I am. We're heading across to the Royal Court, who are having a brilliant run at the moment. They had the fantastic Roald Dahl play. And now they've got a new piece, which is called Deaf Republic. And we've got a trailer again, which actually can explain it slightly better than me.
The Deaf Republic is kind of a theatrical adaptation from the poetry of Ilya Kaminsky.
It's a beautiful piece about the reclaiming of a nation, their power and independence, you know, in the face of occupation, which is something that we see happening around the world at the moment.
Deaf Republic is quite revolutionary.
Actually, I think it does need a bit more explanation from you, Stefan. I haven't got it all yet. How many different elements are we dealing with here?
So we're dealing with a lot. We actually have puppetry. It starts out with a puppet show, which brings a gathering of people in some fictional town. It's war-torn, occupied country, gatherings not allowed. And in the middle of all of this, a deaf boy is shot because he doesn't hear the soldiers' warning to clear out. And the next morning, everybody in the town wakes up deaf. So for me, a little bit of a reminder of Rhinoceros, the Ionescu play that I saw up at the Almeida, where everybody thinks there was a rhinoceros and everyone slowly turns into one. So it's about groupthink, mass hysteria, but also about complicity and silence, which obviously with the themes. So we have words flashed up on screens, we have visuals put on, there's a gauzy sort of screen across the front of the stage. We're looking at things there, we're looking beyond at the stage, we're looking at screens. There is a bit of puppetry as well. There are deaf performers, speaking performers. This is immersive theatre as it should be, compared to a lot of the rubbish that's been going around recently. This is inventive, beautiful, powerful. At the end, a drone films us, and we are sat in silence, clearly, and we've just witnessed atrocities, and they're very vividly done. But it really makes us, you know, in the end, we turn and look at ourselves, and are we just watching all of this go by?
You believe we should see this?
This is brilliant theatre. It's only on for another week. The Royal Court is just doing these short runs. They're doing another play next week called Cow Deer as well, which brings the lives of a cow and a deer to life. So they're doing interesting experimental stuff, but it's beautiful, powerful. I recommend this, and I do recommend Born with Teeth, just for a hell of a ride.
Stefan, I hadn't seen you for a few weeks. You are very welcome back.
Thank you
You're
very
in
much.
great form. Thank you very much, Stefan Kyriazis. Coming up, renowned celebrity photographer, founder of the cult Hollywood magazine Treats, Steve Shaw, will describe celebrity shoots and Hollywood parties. But first, your latest news headlines with Bethany Elsey.
Good afternoon. The headlines from the GB Newsroom. Asylum seekers being housed in hotels will be moved into military barracks on former military bases under government plans to be announced within weeks. A government building in Ukraine has been hit and at least 3 people killed during the largest Russian air attack since the war began. An investigation into Wednesday's funicular crash in Lisbon that killed 16 people has found a cable linking the 2 carriages snapped. 5 days of strike action across the London Underground begins today. Members of the RMT union are disputing pay and conditions. And London-born Carlo Acutis, who died of leukemia aged 15, has become the first Catholic saint of the millennial generation. You're up to date. More for you at 1 o'clock.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Looking ahead to the new week, and all of us, it's going to be an unsettled one. Further spells of rain and showers, and temperatures after quite a warm weekend for some of us will return to nearer average. So the reason is that we're going to be dominated by this area of low pressure, bringing in some further rain and showers. Before we get there, we've still got a fine evening to come across the southeast, but as we go through the course of the night, rain moves across many parts. Becomes increasingly confined to western and northern areas as we go through the course of the night, leaving clear skies across eastern areas, and quite a windy night actually for Shetland and Orkney. And for all of us, a fairly mild night for the time of year, towns and cities staying firmly in double figures. So we start Monday morning off on a fairly cheery note across many parts, lots of sunshine around, but we will see some showers quickly bubble up, especially across the West Country and Wales, parts of Lancashire and Cumbria too. The far west of Northern Ireland may also start to see a few showers come in, and again across western Scotland too. And still just got the overnight rain to clear across Shetland as we start the day. But elsewhere, lots of sunshine around as we start the new working week. But cloud will quickly bubble up, and that will allow some showers to develop initially across western areas, but they will become a much more widespread as we go through the course of the day. Some of these will be heavy, potentially thundery in places. And for all of us, temperatures are a little bit down compared to the weekend, but we still see highs reaching around 21 or 22 degrees down towards the southeastern corner. Into the evening hours, the showers will become increasingly confined again across the west, leaving a fine end to the day across many eastern and central parts. And this showery picture will continue as we go through the course of the week. Many of us seeing showers or longer spells of rain. Temperatures around average for the time of year. So in any brightness, I think it won't feel too bad out there at all. Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience, because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. Steve Shaw has photographed some of the world's biggest stars, including Britney Spears, Naomi Campbell and Jennifer Lawrence. Reflecting the glamour of his work in Hollywood, Steve began publishing the luxury fine art magazine Treats in 2010. He's now going to release a coffee table book, allowing us to glimpse the glitz. He joins me now to talk about his life and work. It's great to see you. Welcome.
You too, Michael.
How did you get started?
As a photographer?
Yes.
I was 11 years old. And just loved photography. I wasn't sure how I could make a living from it, but it was just something I was very passionate about. And
you started professionally. You started by assisting people.
Yeah, I was an assistant in a photo studio in Salford, sweeping floors and making cups of tea, loading film back in the days that they had film, and it just segued from there and ended up moving to America.
You were a photographer on a cruise line.
On a cruise ship, yeah. And I was.
Did that help you to make the break?
It got me out of England and over to America. That was a crazy job, actually. Yeah, sailing out of Miami. Yeah.
What would you describe as the break? I mean, all of us have a fortuitous moment of serendipity, don't we?
Yeah, I think I ended up going from Los Angeles to Sydney and started working there, and I started shooting there. And then I got a call from American Vogue, a guy called Ivan Shaw, who has the same name as me, and he'd seen my work in Australia, and he said, we want to use you for a photo shoot. It actually never ended up happening, but I forged a relationship with Ivan, and he said, look, if you ever come over to New York, I'll meet you, and maybe you can do something. And he gave me my first job for American Vogue. That was a big break, yeah.
Big break indeed. You photographed the stars. Are there any anecdotes you want to share with us? Any favourites? Probably as well not to do the non-favourites, so let's do some favourites.
Yeah, the favourites.
Who was good to work with?
Actually, I think they're all different. Especially when you're photographing celebrities, they're so used to not looking at a camera or sitting still, and you're telling them to kind of do the opposite. So I always found that people were very, kind of the people the celebrities who had done a lot of photo shoots were much more comfortable. I don't know, really. I don't know if I have a favourite, but I used to work with Naomi Campbell all the time.
Yes.
She used to actually book me on jobs. We got along really well, and she was just incredible in front of the camera.
Yes.
So anyone that would make my life easier as a photographer, that I didn't have to direct, was kind of great.
What do the following names have in common? Ali Larter, Danny Minogue, Lisa Snowdon, Kat Deely, Lucy Liu.
I had really good relationships with them. Yeah. My life was consumed with photography. I really didn't have a life out of it. So I think those relationships I had it was part of the industry, really. I didn't have a social life, so I met people on photo shoots. Yeah, so I usually took great photographs of them, and
things happened.
And things happened from there. Yeah.
Tell me about the setting up of Treats. This must be the moment, surely, to take your book out.
Sure.
I'll explain to viewers that... well, I was going to get used to it, but
okay,
I'm very happy to do it. I mean, look, it's a beautifully packaged book, isn't it? Absolutely lovely.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
So, I was going to ask you about the foundation of Treats. How did you get into Treats?
So, as a photographer, it was really important to shoot editorial, which are magazines. When you shoot editorial, your work is seen by advertisers, and the higher echelon of print magazines you work for, you can get better rates as a commercial photographer. So usually shooting for magazines, there was no money in it, but then you kind of get the ad campaigns, oh, Steve's in Vogue or he's in Esquire, or they see your work that way. And Treats really came about out of frustration and of me personally as a photographer going to see magazines that I wanted to shoot for. They already have their roster of photographers, and a lot of young photographers don't get that opportunity. So I thought, if I create a magazine that I love, maybe other photographers would actually work for me too, if I give them a great platform.
In the third edition, you had Emily Ratajkowski on the front page, on the front cover, nude, caused a sensation.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, huge sensation.
What was the justification for putting a nude on the front cover?
Well, Emily was in the very first issue of Treats when I had the idea, and it was another photographer called Tony Duran who had photographed her, and there was something about her that just kind of stood from his photographs that stood out to me, and then it was purely by chance that I ended up shooting her, because a photographer who was shooting for us, something happened on the shoot, and then I was left about to go to print with this magazine, and I'd lost this cover. So I called Emily and said, look, can you nip to the studio, do a quick shoot? She said, I don't have any clothes, and she says, I don't care, let's go for it, this is so beautiful. And I kind of knew she had a bit of, I knew this girl was going to be a star when I met her, but after photographing her myself, I really saw what happened. It was kind of crazy.
The viewer at home will have noticed that I've been slightly reluctant to open this book. And that is because it's full of stunning nude images of women. So explain that. Who took the photographs in here?
Oh, well, I think as a photographer calling other photographers, saying, I've got this beautiful magazine, I will showcase your work exactly how I would like my work shown myself. They were all very, they were really excited to do it. So I always went for, my goal was to really get the best photographers I could, and then also find new, undiscovered photographers that I could give them a platform, and models as well, like Emily. No one knew Emily when I put in the magazine. To give them a platform to kind of shoot something without commercial restrictions. There are clothes in Treats, not a lot, obviously, but that you're not selling a product. You're just selling an emotion and a feeling. And I always wanted to create something that was really beautiful, empowering for women as well, and very tasteful. And I think a lot of photographers want to do that. They want to do something creative.
A thing of this beauty doesn't come cheap. What does the book cost?
It's £250.
And complete the following sentence. This book is worth £250 because?
Of the hard work and quality that goes into it.
And the very beautiful images that emerge.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I actually think this is... Most people buy coffee table books for decoration. They never open them. I think these will actually wear out. They'll probably have to buy 2 or 3 of them because it will wear out. They won't actually read it.
Steve Shaw, thank you so much for joining me on a Sunday. Good luck with the book.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations upon it.
Thank you.
Coming up in the latest instalment of my Taste of Britain series, Sam Brennan from the Braywood in Maidenhead has braved the River Thames to join me. This is Sunday with Michael Portillo, only on GB News.
Be nice to escape the grey.
Clear skies, here we come.
As clear as our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
It's quite a changeable picture across the Mediterranean over the next couple of days. Plenty of sunny spells on offer, but there is going to be some quite strong winds across parts of the Canaries as we head through Monday afternoon. Parts of Spain and Portugal, parts of Italy seeing plenty of sunny spells, but southern parts of France, parts of Greece and parts of Turkey seeing plenty of heavy showers through Monday afternoon. Quite a lot of sunshine on offer as we go through the rest of the week and feeling pleasantly warm with highs into the high 20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News travel destinations forecast.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, Jeremy Clarkson is being praised for his role in inspiring the next generation of farmers. His documentary shows the ups and downs of British farm life, and now the Royal Agricultural University in Gloucestershire has credited it with a rise in applications. Good stuff, eh? We can now speak with the agriculture student at Gloucestershire's Hartpury University, Joseph Watkins. Joseph, thank you so much for joining me. What a scene you've got there. Do you think it's going to inspire another generation? You're a young man yourself. How has it inspired you at all?
for anyone watching, it's just amazing to see, isn't it? All the different steps they take, all the different revenues which they can create on farm. So I think it's really good for the public. And if it does something to help get people into the industry, I think that's an amazing thing. Agriculture has both a lack of skilled talent and just a lack of people in the industry anyway. So if someone wants to go and do a college course or university course to get into the agriculture industry because they watch Jeremy Clarkson, this old pot-bellied Top Gear man, then I think it's great. And I say that with all due respect. I love Top Gear.
Well, we were talking about the ups and downs of farm life. What are the first of all, let's start with the ups. What are the ups?
They're pretty beautiful ladies, you know, surrounded by 600 lovely ladies. That's certainly something. Working outside, you know, you're working with your hands. It's definitely a rewarding experience to be able to go home after a long day and think, right, everything's taken care of. All of these cows are all happy. Some of the downs, well, it's difficult, isn't it? You've heard this, I'm sure you know. The family farm tax has been in the news lately. At the early mornings, late nights, being away from friends and family, strenuous jobs, and often at times dangerous. So there's ups and downs to it. But as you can see now, I think the positives outweigh the negatives for me.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Miriam, you can't be serious. Scrapping the triple lock on state pensions? Madness.
Andrew, we just can't carry on pretending. The numbers just don't add up. We've got to be honest with people. We've got to face the facts. That's what people want.
Well, that's what you get on GB News and on Britain's Newsroom. Lively debates, lively conversation.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first, and we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Miriam, you can't be serious. Scrapping the triple lock on state pensions? Madness.
Andrew, we just can't carry on pretending. The numbers just don't add up. We've got to be honest with people. We've got to face the facts. That's what people want.
Well, that's what you get on GB News and on Britain's Newsroom. Lively debates, lively conversation.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first, and we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Sunday with Michael Portillo. It is time to put my napkin on because Sam Brennan is the head chef at the Braywood in Maidenhead, which offers a menu rooted in local and seasonal produce, and he joins me now. Sam, so good to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Tell me about this project, because this is a new venue, is it not?
Yes, so we opened in November. It's been a long time coming. So we're just on the outskirts of Maidenhead on a lovely street called Paley Street. And yeah, we just cook lovely local produce.
You took over an old pub, but there's no vestige of that left.
No, so the grounds that we're on have quite a big reputation behind them. It was Michael Parkinson's old venue. So yeah, we haven't got anything to do with that per se, but you know we're on those grounds, so it's a big part to be on.
What is it about Maidenhead, about Bray in particular, that attracts these great restaurants?
Yeah, well, it's definitely a culinary mecca. I don't know. I guess it's just where all the top chefs have landed, and you know now we're kind of a part of that, and to try and build on that and reach those heights would be amazing.
The customers come from far and wide.
Yes, they absolutely do. Yeah. So we've got you know, we've only been open almost 9 months now. We've got an amazing regular basis, but every day we're seeing new faces, which is amazing as well.
You might expect me to ask this. You're reachable by train, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we're an 8-minute drive from the train station.
From Maidenhead Railway Station.
From Maidenhead, yeah.
I think it's a reasonable question, actually, because you know, Londoners who might want to go and have a lovely meal, they obviously want to have a drink or two with their meal.
Absolutely.
And if they can do it by train, that's an enormous advantage.
Yeah, exactly.
And you popped in there, you popped into here from there this morning.
Yeah, so yeah, I was within Maidenhead to London within 40 minutes.
Where have you come from?
So, well, actually, I grew up not far from where I'm fully based now. but, you know, I've worked in various different restaurants. I spent some time in Marlow, worked at the Complete Angler Hotel.
Oh, yes.
And then from there, I moved to London at 19 and worked for Gordon Ramsay's Petrus. And then from that, I came back home for a little bit and worked at Lauterland under Alan Murchison. And then from there, I helped a friend out in Manchester for a little bit. And then a friend that I was working with at Lauterland was at the Woodsbean. So then I moved from Manchester to the Woodsbean, and I've been with the company 9 years now. Been lucky to be head chef of the Woodsbean. And now...
Not lucky at all, because I'm sure it's all about hard work, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's
you are
definitely all
incredibly
about
hard-working, you people who are chefs in catering in general.
Yeah.
Unbelievably hard work.
Yeah, no, we... So I've been fortunate enough to work into some top kitchens, and now I guess the biggest challenge is the Braewood.
I am fortunate enough that you have brought some food into the studio, and the big challenge for me is to taste some of it.
Yeah.
What have you got?
So we've got a lovely duck liver parfait.
Let's have a little look at that.
Duck livers from Creedy Carver. In there we've got a sauterne jelly, some fresh pear, some mustard frills and some chicory, and a little rosemary brioche to go along the side of that.
And a glass of wine. What have you brought in?
We do. So we actually have a sweet wine to go with, with your starter. So it's from our own estate. So it's Linden Estate. It's in a little village called Boxford, which is literally a stone's throw from the Woodsbean. So it's a late harvest. So they use Ortega and Pinot Blanc grapes. It's quite fresh compared to Sauternes, where it can be quite rich and quite syrupy, where this adds a really nice balance of freshness to your dish.
Thank you very much indeed.
There you are.
Oh, what a very modest helping you've given me. That's absolutely fine. We need to be refined.
Yeah.
Oh, a gorgeous sweet wine.
Yeah.
Absolutely lovely. So, do you recommend I maybe spread this onto my brioche?
Yeah.
Take a chunk of brioche. How's the restaurant doing so far?
Yeah, it's doing really well, thank you.
What's your particular offer? Because, I mean, a lot of people say that they're dedicated to seasonal food and local food and so on.
Yeah.
How do you make that a reality?
Well, we just follow the seasons. You know, we try to stick to core proteins, and then as the seasons change, we try and build on those, because obviously you get the best out of everything when it's prime in its season.
What can you find best in the Thames Valley? What are the foods that are outstanding there?
Well, come the springtime, we found a lovely plot of wild garlic, just literally a stone's throw from us, a good 5-minute walk. At the moment, there's blackberries everywhere. So across the street of the Braewood is a massive hedgerow. So we're starting to forage some blackberries for our up-and-coming new dishes that are coming onto the menu, which will be served with the parfait very shortly.
Let's taste this parfait. What an amazing sweetness to it.
Thank you.
Tell me about all those flavours in there again.
Yeah, so in the parfait we've got duck livers and chicken livers, and then we make like a really nice, like rich shallot reduction, and then eggs and butter. We cook it in the oven, and then we've got a lovely sauterne jelly in there, and then the freshness of the pear, the bitterness of the chicory just helps marry it all together.
What hope for the vegetarian at your restaurant?
We do have a quite extensive vegetarian option. So at the moment, we've got a lovely parsley risotto on. And we would do that with our own homemade stracciatella cheese as one of the starters. And then on some of the main courses, we do a... now I have forgotten my own menu. We do a lovely stuffed courgette flour. So we stuff it with like a spiced aubergine and tomato mix, and then we make a mosaic courgette terrine to go with that as well.
Well, I certainly want to wish you all the best with that.
Thank you very much.
As I say, very reassuring to me that you're so near the railway station. And thank you so much for bringing such a delicious starter and such a delicious wine.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you very much indeed to Sam Brennan. Thank you to all of my guests for joining me on this first Sunday of September. I'll be back at the same time next week. Up next on GB News is Dawn Neeson. Dawn, what's coming up on your show today?
Michael, I love the way you turn around and go, Dawn. Normally after you've had a glass of wine, which I completely understand, we've got a huge packed show coming up for you.
Boris in bed with Farage, that's one to conjure, isn't it? Migrants in military camps, is this something we should be doing? The shocking rise of anti-Semitism in the UK. You don't want to miss this one, it is absolutely horrific, and it's across all parties and age groups as well. Very interesting. And why teens are more likely to be waving this flag and than their parents. Yes, they are. The youngsters are more patriotic than their mums and dads. Don't want to miss that one either. And we are also having a little bit of fun as well and talking about should kids in schools be singing that national anthem. All of that and much, much more to come, all kicking off at 1 o'clock until 3 o'clock. We'll see you very soon. Don't go too far. You really don't want to miss it.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Boxed Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast. Looking ahead to the new week, and all of us, it's going to be an unsettled one. Further spells of rain and showers, and temperatures after quite a warm weekend for some of us will return to nearer average. So the reason is that we're going to be dominated by this area of low pressure, bringing in some further rain and showers. Before we get there, we've still got a fine evening to come across the southeast, but as we go through the course of the night, rain moves across many parts, becomes increasingly confined to western and northern areas.